I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name is Mark, and I'm a 36-year-old software engineer who thought he had a perfect life. I was married to Jenna, a 34-year-old marketing executive. We had been together for over a decade, married for 7 years. On the surface, our lives looked blissful, a cozy home, 2 dogs, and a circle of friends who often marveled at how well we complemented each other. But underneath that facade, things were starting to unravel. It began subtly, little changes in Jenna's behavior that I brushed off at first. She started working late more often, claiming she was swamped with projects at her agency. I could understand that. Marketing can be demanding, especially around product launches. But then there were the unexplained absences. Just a dinner with the team, she'd say, and I'd accept it, telling myself to trust her. But in my gut, something felt off. The tipping point came one Tuesday evening when I returned home early from work, eager to surprise Jenna with her favorite takeout. As I stepped into the house, I noticed her purse was on the kitchen counter, but she wasn't there. I figured. She must be in the shower or doing laundry. I set the food on the table and called out her name. No response. So I wandered into our bedroom, and that's when I caught a glimpse of something that shattered my world. On the nightstand lay her phone, buzzing with notifications. I picked it up out of curiosity just to see who was messaging her at this hour. That's when I noticed it, a message from someone named Ryan. I hesitated, my heart racing, but a part of me felt compelled to look. I opened the app and scrolled through their conversation. My stomach dropped. The exchanges were flirty, riddled with innuendos, and some messages hinted at meetings that made my blood run cold. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How could she? It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. Anger bubbled beneath the surface, but I couldn't let it out just yet. I needed to confront her, but I wanted to gather more evidence first. I put the phone back down and paced around the house, feeling a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, confusion. How long had this been going on? Who? Was this Ryan? After what felt like hours, Jenna finally walked through the door, laughing about a story from work. Her laughter died the moment she saw my face. I don't think she expected me to find out this way. The confrontation came in a surge, a tidal wave of hurt and fury. I asked her about Ryan, my voice shaking with disbelief. Her reaction was immediate confusion, then annoyance. "Who's Ryan?" she said sharply, even as I waved the phone in her face. The excuses flowed freely. "It's just a guy from work," she exclaimed. "You're overreacting, we're just friends, Mark." But the words felt hollow, empty against the weight of the messages I had read. I could see the guilt flickering in her eyes, the way her face paled as I continued to press her. Each denial felt like a knife twisting deeper into my heart. I was a mix of emotions, raging anger, deep-seated sadness, and a sense of loss. She was lying to my face, and that betrayal cut deeper than I ever imagined. We fought for hours. I couldn't believe the audacity she had to even pretend it was innocent. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. After the dust settled, I stood there feeling hollow. Jenna had stormed out of the room, claiming she needed space, but I was left with a decision to make. I could feel the tectonic plates of our lives shifting beneath us, and I had to figure out what this meant for our future. Would I want to fight for our marriage? Could I trust her again? Little did I know that this was only the beginning of a tumultuous journey. As I stood there, my heart heavy with betrayal, I knew I had to do something drastic. I needed to reclaim my sense of self, and that was the spark that ignited my plan. I decided I would get a tattoo. Not just any tattoo, but one that symbolized my freedom. It was time to show Jenna what she lost. After the confrontation with Jenna, I was a storm of emotions. Anger, betrayal, and confusion swirled within me like a tornado. I spent the rest of the night packing around our home, replaying every moment of our life together, trying to pinpoint when things started to go wrong. It felt surreal, like watching a movie, where I was the protagonist caught in a plot twist I never saw coming. The house that once felt like a sanctuary now seemed like a prison filled with memories that stung like bees. The next day was a blur. I went to work, but I was on autopilot. My colleagues noticed that something was off. I tried to smile, make small talk, but every time I heard Jenna's name or saw a couple laughing together, a fresh wave of anger surged through me. I couldn't focus on anything. My code was full of errors and I made mistakes I usually wouldn't. By lunchtime, I was so wound up that I needed to escape the office. I took a long walk to clear my head, and it was during that walk that I first thought about getting a tattoo. It came out of nowhere, a flicker of an idea that sparked in my mind like a match striking against the dark. I had never thought about tattoos before. To me, they were just ink on skin. But now they felt like a powerful symbol, a way to take control of my life again. I wanted a tattoo that screamed freedom. Something that would remind me every day of the betrayal, yet also of my strength to move forward. I found myself standing outside a tattoo parlor, the neon sign flickering in the afternoon sun. The place was bustling with people, young artists working on pieces, clients discussing designs, laughter and chatter filling the air. I hesitated at first, the weight of the moment pressing down on me, but then I stepped inside. A tattoo could be my way of reclaiming my identity, of turning my pain into art. As I walked in, a tattoo artist named Jake approached me. He had a friendly smile and was covered in intricate tattoos, each one telling a story. I explained my situation, how my wife had cheated on me and how I wanted a tattoo that would symbolize my newfound freedom. Jake listened intently, nodding as I spoke. "Man, I'm sorry to hear that," he said. "But I get it. A tattoo can be a powerful reminder of your journey." We discussed designs, and I decided on a phoenix rising from the ashes, representing rebirth and strength. I wanted it to be bold and vibrant, a reflection of my determination to rise above. The pain. As he sketched it out and prepared for the inking, I felt a strange sense of empowerment. This was mine, a way to reclaim my identity, to mark a turning point in my life. The tattooing process was intense. As the needle buzzed against my skin, I felt a mix of pain and relief, almost like each sting was pulling away the hurt Jenna had inflicted. I closed my eyes, focusing on the moment, letting the pain transform into something meaningful. The ink filled the outline of the phoenix, bright reds and oranges swirling together, and I knew this design would be a part of me forever. Once it was done, I stared at the reflection in the mirror. The phoenix, fierce and beautiful, was now etched into my skin, a permanent reminder of my strength and resilience. I felt liberated, as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But the true test would be when Jenna saw it. I wanted to ensure she knew what she lost. I wanted her to see the man standing in front of her was no longer the same. He was reborn, stronger than before. When I returned home that evening, I was nervous but determined. Jenna was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, oblivious to the storm brewing in my heart. I revealed my tattoo, lifting my shirt to show her the vibrant colors. Her response was immediate, a mix of surprise and anger. "What the hell, Mark? You didn't tell me you were getting that." I could see the realization dawn on her face. This wasn't just a tattoo, it was a statement. I wanted her to understand that I was moving on, ready to embrace my freedom. She tried to downplay it, rolling her eyes and saying, "It's just a tattoo. You think that's going to change anything?" But it was too late for her to minimize it. I had made my decision. I would not let her betrayal define me. I had taken a step towards reclaiming my life, and no matter how she responded, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't experienced before. The tattoo was just the beginning. I planned to change my life, to surround myself with positivity and support. I wanted to ensure Jenna knew I was not going to sit back and let her actions dictate my happiness. I would become the man I was always meant to be, stronger, wiser, and free. As the days passed, I followed through on my plan. I focused on my work, started exercising regularly for stress relief, and reconnected with friends I had drifted away from during my marriage. Each step I took felt like a victory, a gradual reclaiming of my identity. But little did I realize, Jenna was not finished. She would try to win me back, and I was about to find out just how far she was willing to go. Jenna's attempts to win me back started almost immediately after I got my tattoo. It was as if my bold declaration of independence triggered something in her. At first, I didn't think much of it. I assumed she was merely trying to salvage what remained of our marriage. But as the days turned into weeks, her efforts began to feel more like desperation than genuine remorse. She started texting me often, sending messages that ranged from "I miss you" to "Can we talk?" I ignored the majority of her attempts to communicate, focusing instead on my own healing. I had made my choice to move forward, and I didn't want to get dragged back into the pain, but the persistence was hard to ignore. One evening I got home from the gym, still riding high from a tough workout. I expected to find the house quiet, but instead, Jenna was waiting for me in the kitchen. The smell of cookies baking wafted through the air and my heart sank. This was a tactic she had used before, baking cookies to guilt me into talking. "Hey, I made your favorite," she said, her voice overly cheerful, almost too sweet. I could see she had put effort into her appearance, wearing a cute outfit and a hopeful expression. "Can we just sit down and talk? I really want to explain everything." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to hear her out, the part that still cared about the woman I had married, but I pushed that voice down, not wanting to open old wounds. "What's there to explain? You had an affair, Jenna. What more could you possibly say?" Her expression shifted rapidly from hopeful to defensive. "It wasn't like that, Mark. You have to understand. Ryan is just someone I confided in at work. You know how stressful things have been. It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything." I shot back, my anger boiling over. "You think I'm supposed to believe that? You're telling me you were just venting to him about how hard your job is while sending flirty texts. That's not how trust works." "I know I messed up," she admitted, tears brimming in her eyes. "But I want to make it right. I love you, Mark. I miss us." I stood there, torn between my feelings and the reality of what had happened. Love. Did she really love me, or was this just another manipulation tactic to regain control? I knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her guilt trip me into submission. "I need space, Jenna," I said firmly. "You've hurt me deeply, and I can't just pretend everything is fine. You need to understand that." She nodded slowly, her shoulders slumping as she turned away from me. In that moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy, but I quickly quashed it. This wasn't about saving her, it was about saving myself. I walked away, heading to my room to gather my thoughts. But Jenna wasn't done. The following days were filled with more of her attempts to reconnect. She started showing up at my workplace, bringing lunch, which made my coworkers raise their eyebrows and whisper. I could feel their pity. They knew I was dealing with a mess, and now I was mixing business with personal drama. Jenna would smile, act like everything was fine, and I'd play along for the sake of appearances, but inside I felt suffocated. One afternoon, she brought me a framed photo of us from happier times, the day of our wedding to be exact. The sight of it twisted my heart with conflicting emotions. I wanted to scream at her for bringing it, for reminding me of the love that now felt like a distant memory. But instead, I just placed it on my desk, feeling the weight of her desperation. Then came the night she pushed too far. I came home after a long day, mentally exhausted. As I walked inside, I was greeted by a dimly lit living room and candles flickering on the dining table. Jenna had prepared a romantic dinner, complete with soft music playing in the background. My heart sank. This felt less like a genuine apology and more like an attempt to distract me from the truth. "Mark, I know things have been rough, but I want to work on our marriage. I want to make things right," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. I took a deep breath, grappling with the mix of emotions swirling within me. "Jenna, you broke my trust. You can't just throw a dinner and expect everything to go back to normal." "I'm serious. I'll do anything," she pleaded, stepping closer to me. "Give me a chance to prove that I can be the wife you deserve." At that moment, I could see the vulnerability in her eyes, a stark contrast to the defiance she had shown during our earlier fights. But beneath that vulnerability, I sensed a lingering manipulation, a desperate grasp for control. "Why should I believe you? You've already lied to me," I replied, maintaining my composure. "I need you to understand that I am not the same person you can just sway with a few candles and a nice dinner. I'm moving on, and you need to accept that." Her face fell, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of genuine despair. But then she backtracked, turning defensive yet again. "You're overreacting. You're being unreasonable. I'm trying to apologize here." And that's when I realized this cycle of manipulation would not stop unless I put an end to it. I needed to show her that I was determined to break free from this toxic pattern. The next day, I took action. I decided to speak with a lawyer about the divorce process. I was tired of living in limbo, tired of feeling like I was allowing her to dictate my feelings and my future. It was time to take control of my life, and that meant officially closing the chapter on Jenna. As I walked into the law office, I felt a surge of empowerment. I was ready to reclaim my freedom fully, and nothing would hold me back now. This was my life, and I would not let anyone, especially not Jenna, steal my happiness away. The phoenix tattoo on my arm felt like a badge of honor, a reminder that I could rise from the ashes of my broken marriage. The next step was to ensure Jenna understood that I had already begun to fly. The decision to consult a lawyer marked a pivotal moment in my journey toward reclaiming my life. I felt a mix of apprehension and exhilaration as I sat in the attorney's office, surrounded by the smell of fresh coffee and the faint sound of typing in the background. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Claire, listened carefully as I explained my situation. She took notes and asked questions, guiding me through the legal implications of divorce and what to expect moving forward. As I spoke, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. For so long, I had been trapped in a cycle of blame and betrayal, but now I was taking the reins of my own life. Claire laid out the steps we needed to take, from filing the paperwork to determining assets and debts. It was overwhelming, but I was ready. I needed to put an end to the heartache and confusion that had consumed me for too long. On the drive home, a sense of clarity washed over me. I was no longer just a victim of Jenna's choices. I was choosing my own path. I had a plan, and it felt liberating. I knew the road ahead would be rocky, especially with Jenna still trying to win me back, but I was prepared to stand my ground. That evening, Jenna texted me again, asking if we could talk. Her messages had shifted from pleading to almost desperate, and I knew that this conversation would be different. She had sensed the change in me, and I was ready to confront her with my decision. When I entered the house, Jenna was sitting on the couch, her expression a mix of hope and anxiety. I could see she had been crying, and for a brief moment a flicker of sympathy surged within me. But I quickly reminded myself of the betrayal, the lies that had shattered our marriage. I couldn't afford to let my guard down. "Mark, can we please just talk?" she said, her voice shaky. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "I've been to see a lawyer," I said flatly, watching her reaction closely. The color drained from her face, and for a moment she was speechless. "A lawyer? You're serious?" "Yes, I'm serious. I can't keep living like this. I need to move on, and I can't do that if you're constantly trying to manipulate me with your apologies and promises." She opened her mouth to respond, but the words seemed stuck in her throat. I could see her mind racing, trying to calculate her next move. "Mark, please don't do this. You're overreacting. We can fix this. I can change." "Change? How can I believe that? You've already betrayed my trust. You can't just say you'll change and expect everything to be fine." "Maybe I can show you. I'll cut ties with Ryan. I'll do anything," she pleaded, desperation spilling from her lips. I stood my ground, feeling the resolve harden within me. "You should have thought about that before you decided to cheat on me. I'm not going to accept empty promises anymore." Jenna's demeanor shifted again, her voice rising in anger. "You're making a huge mistake, Mark. You'll regret this." "Regret? I think I've had enough of feeling regret for your actions. I want to be free of this, Jenna." For a moment, silence hung thick between us. I felt a mixture of sadness and relief wash over me. This was it, the final confrontation that would close the door on our marriage. "I'm filing for divorce," I said, the words solidifying my decision. Jenna's face crumpled as tears streamed down her cheeks. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of guilt, but I quickly drowned it out. I had to remember the pain she had caused me. "You don't have to do this. We can work things out, I promise." "No, Jenna, I can't. I've already made my choice." With that, I turned away, leaving her sitting on the couch, her sobs echoing in the empty space between us. It hurt to see her in pain, but I reminded myself that this was necessary. I needed to prioritize my healing, my happiness. In the days that followed, I focused on the steps ahead. I filed for divorce, and the paperwork felt like a heavy burden lifting off my shoulders. I began to envision a life beyond the pain, a life where I could rediscover who I was outside of my marriage. Friends rallied around me, offering support, and I leaned on them more than I ever had before. I spent time with my close friend Jake, who was also a tattoo enthusiast. He admired my new tattoo and encouraged me to embrace this new chapter. We often talked about our dreams and aspirations, and he reminded me that I was free to pursue them unencumbered by the weight of a failed relationship. But Jenna wasn't finished. As I immersed myself in this new life, she began to change her tactics. She started showing up at places I frequented, pretending to run into me. I spotted her at the grocery store one afternoon, her hair perfectly styled as she attempted to appear casual. She approached me with a forced smile, and I braced myself for what was to come. "Mark, fancy seeing you here," she said, her voice overly cheerful. I didn't return her enthusiasm. "What do you want, Jenna?" "I just wanted to talk," she said, trying to maintain a friendly facade. "I've been thinking a lot about us." "Yeah, and what conclusions have you reached?" She hesitated, and I could see the panic in her eyes. "I realize I messed up, but I miss you. I want to make things right." I shook my head, feeling the familiar anger bubbling up. "You can't fix this. You broke my trust, and you can't just pretend everything is fine because you're feeling lonely. Please, don't be like this. Just give me one more chance." But I was adamant. "We're done, Jenna. You need to respect that." I walked away, leaving her standing there, her expression a mix of confusion and anger. I had finally taken control of my life, and I wasn't about to let her manipulate me again. The next step was clear. I needed to focus on my healing, surround myself with positive influences, and embrace my newfound freedom. The phoenix on my skin wasn't just a design. It was a testament to my strength, a reminder that I could rise from the ashes of my past and create a future that was mine alone. It was time to move forward, and I was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. The weeks following my decision to file for divorce were a whirlwind of emotions, but beneath the surface turmoil, a sense of liberation began to settle in. I threw myself into work, focused on my fitness routine, and spent more time with friends who lifted me up instead of dragging me down. I felt lighter, freer, and with every passing day, the weight of Jenna's betrayal became a little less heavy. But Jenna didn't give up so easily. Her attempts to reach out continued, and she escalated them. She would show up at my workplace unannounced, leaving my coworkers bewildered. Some were sympathetic, while others eyed her warily, sensing the tension between us. I had made it clear that I didn't want to talk, but she seemed determined to catch me off guard. One Friday afternoon, I was at a coffee shop near my office, indulging in a rare moment of relaxation. I had my laptop open, working on a personal project, when I glanced up and nearly choked on my latte. There she was, Jenna, walking in with that same forced cheerfulness that made my skin crawl. She spotted me, and before I could react, headed straight over. "Hey, Mark," she exclaimed, voice too bright for a place so intimate. "Jenna, what are you doing here?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. I didn't want to cause a scene, but I felt my heart rate spike. "I just wanted to see how you're doing. You've been so distant," she said, her eyes wide with feigned innocence. "I thought we could talk like normal people." I could feel the frustration bubbling inside me. "Normal people don't sneak up on someone at their favorite coffee shop. You need to respect my space." She flinched at my words, but quickly recovered, adopting a more pleading tone. "I'm just worried about you. I miss the fun we used to have. Can we at least grab a drink and talk?" "No," I replied firmly, trying to keep my voice steady. "You need to understand that I'm moving on. You can't keep trying to pull me back into this mess." Her expression crumbled, and in that moment I felt a mix of anger and pity. I didn't want to hurt her, but I had to protect myself. "Mark, please," she said, her voice breaking. "I've realized so much. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I want to change." "Sorry doesn't fix the damage you've done," I snapped back. "I need to focus on my life now, and you're not a part of it anymore." I could see the tears welling in her eyes, and as much as I wanted to feel compassion, I was reminded of the way she had hurt me. I stood up, grabbing my bag and preparing to leave. "I'm done talking, Jenna. This is over." I walked away, feeling the weight of her gaze on my back. As I stepped out into the sunlight, I took a deep breath, the fresh air filling my lungs with a sense of determination. I was not going to let her manipulate me any longer. I had made my choice, and I would stick to it. The following week, I met with Claire again to discuss the next steps for the divorce. She was efficient, guiding me through the process, and for the first time I began to feel the weight of the situation lift. Each detail we discussed brought me closer to closure, and I felt empowered. This was my life, and I had the power to take control. Claire explained the timeline for filing and what to expect. She also encouraged me to document everything: texts, emails, anything that highlighted Jenna's attempts to sway my feelings. It felt surreal. I was documenting my own heartbreak, but I knew it would help solidify my case. The more I engaged with the process, the more I felt like I was reclaiming my narrative. I went home that night feeling a sense of clarity. I spent time journaling, reflecting on my emotions and experiences. The act of writing helped to process everything that had happened and how I had grown through it. I was transforming my pain into strength, and it felt cathartic. As the divorce process accelerated, Jenna's attempts to reach me became increasingly aggressive. She began showing up at my favorite places: my gym, the local bar, even the park where I took my dogs. Each time I felt a mix of anger and determination. I was not going to let her destroy the progress I had made. One evening I was out with Jake, unwinding after a long week. We were at a local pub, laughing and enjoying a few beers, when suddenly I saw Jenna enter with a group of her friends. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to deal with her tonight, but there was nowhere to hide. "Hey, let's go outside for a minute," Jake suggested, sensing my discomfort. I nodded, grateful for his support. We stepped outside into the cool night air, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. A few moments later, I heard a voice behind me. "Mark, there you are." I turned around to see Jenna approaching, her friends trailing behind her. She looked determined, her eyes narrowing as she approached. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice a mixture of urgency and frustration. "No, Jenna, I'm not interested," I replied, trying to keep my tone calm but firm. "Why are you being like this?" "I'm just trying to talk like normal people." "Normal people don't cheat on each other," I shot back, feeling the anger rising again. "Stop bringing that up. I've apologized. I've tried. It's not enough. You can't just erase what you did," I said, my patience wearing thin. Her friends exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the escalating confrontation. I wanted to walk away, but I felt Jenna's presence closing in on me. "Mark, I won't give up on us. I love you. You have to see that. Love, you don't get to use that word after what you've done," I said fiercely. "I'm moving on whether you like it or not." The intensity of the moment hung in the air, and I could see the desperation in her eyes, but I also saw something else: her unwillingness to let go. It was as if she was clinging to the remnants of what we once had, but I was determined to cut those ties. "Mark, please," she pleaded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I can't lose you. I'll do anything. Anything. You can start by respecting my choice," I told her. "You need to let me go." With that, I turned away, leaving her standing there with her friends. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I walked back inside the pub, Jake waiting for me with a supportive nod. I had stood my ground, and it felt empowering. As I settled back into our conversation, I knew I was closer to finally breaking free from the chains of my past. I was on the verge of a new beginning, and nothing, especially not Jenna, was going to hold me back now. The phoenix tattoo on my arm was a constant reminder of my rebirth, and I was ready to embrace the future with open arms. The next chapter was waiting for me, and I was determined to make it the best one yet. As the weeks rolled into months, the divorce process took on a life of its own. It became a strange dance of paperwork, legal meetings, and increasingly tense confrontations with Jenna. Each encounter felt like a test of my resolve, but I was determined to keep moving forward, focusing on the future I wanted to build away from her. The day finally came for our first court appearance. I was nervous, but I approached it with a sense of purpose. I put on my best suit, a subtle reminder to myself of my worth and how far I had come. I imagined the phoenix rising from the ashes with each step I took toward the courthouse. I was no longer the victim. I was taking control. Inside the courtroom, Jenna sat on the opposite side, her eyes a mix of defiance and desperation. I could see that she had tried to present herself well, wearing a fitted dress and a carefully crafted expression of calm. But beneath that facade, I could sense the turmoil roiling inside her. As the proceedings began, I felt a wave of clarity wash over me. I had made the right choice in seeking this divorce. I was ready to let go of the past. The judge called us to present our cases, and I felt the weight of the moment. I had prepared for this, but nothing could truly prepare me for the emotions that surfaced as I spoke. I outlined my reasons for the divorce, Jenna's infidelity, the betrayal, and how it had shattered our relationship. As I spoke, I felt a mix of sadness, anger, and relief. I was finally giving voice to the pain that had been bottled up for so long. Jenna had her chance to speak, and I braced myself for her defense. I expected her to plead with the judge, to try to win sympathy, and she did not disappoint. She painted a picture of a broken marriage caused by stress and misunderstandings, emphasizing how she was willing to change, how she loved me. But as I listened, I felt a sense of detachment. I knew the truth. I knew the reality of her betrayal, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate the narrative any longer. When it was my turn to respond, I stood tall. "Your Honor, I understand that marriages can face challenges," I said, my voice steady. "But infidelity is not just a challenge, it's a choice. A choice that has irrevocably damaged the trust in our relationship. I can never go back to how things were, and I want to move forward with my life." After what felt like an eternity, the judge made her ruling. She granted the divorce, and relief flooded over me like a tidal wave. I was free. The words echoed in my mind, solidifying the reality that I could finally close this chapter of my life. The days following the court hearing felt surreal. I was ready to embrace my newfound freedom fully. I took time to reflect on everything that had happened, acknowledging the lessons I had learned. I realized that every painful moment had led me to understand my worth better. I had emerged from the ashes, ready to rise as my own person. As I transitioned into single life, I decided to make a fresh start. I reconnected with old friends and met new ones. I began exploring hobbies I had neglected during my marriage. I took up hiking, finding solace in nature, and even started volunteering at a local animal shelter, something I had always wanted to do. The more I embraced life, the more I felt the heaviness of my past lift off my shoulders. One evening, while volunteering at the shelter, I met a woman named Sarah. She was kind, funny, and had a warmth that drew me in. We connected over our shared love of animals and quickly formed a friendship that blossomed into something more. For the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to feel hope and excitement. I was no longer living under the shadow of my past. I was ready to embrace love again. As my relationship with Sarah deepened, I found myself reflecting on my journey. I thought about the pain of betrayal, the anger, and the heartache, but I also remembered the growth that came from it. I had transformed from a man defined by his marriage into someone who understood the importance of self-worth and independence. I was no longer the same man who had been deceived. I was a new version of myself, stronger and more resilient. When I finally had the courage to share my story with Sarah, I did so with pride. I wanted her to know the journey I had taken to arrive at this point, how my experiences shaped who I was. Instead of recoiling, she listened with empathy and compassion, seeing me for the person I had become rather than as a victim of my past. Together, we began to build a new chapter. Through all of this, I learned valuable lessons that I hoped could help others facing similar situations. I learned that healing takes time, that it's okay to lean on friends and family for support, and that acknowledging your pain is the first step in reclaiming your life. Most importantly, I discovered that my worth is not defined by someone else's actions. I'm not what someone else has done to me. I am what I choose to become. As I lay in bed one night reflecting on how far I had come, I gazed at my phoenix tattoo, a symbol of my rebirth. It would always remind me of my journey, a testament to resilience and strength. I had emerged from the ashes, and I was ready to soar into a bright future filled with possibilities.